pleased to welcome Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Federal Territories, Yang Berhormat Puan Hannah Yeoh. And moderating this session is presenter and producer at BFM 89.9, Lee Chwi Lynn. Once again, ladies and gents, we welcome questions from the audience. To participate, please scan the QR code on the back of your tags to submit your questions via Slido. Thank you. All yours, Lynn.
All right, good morning and welcome to the session on building sustainable cities and communities. I want to start off by welcoming YB Hannah to Invest Malaysia. An honor to have you with us. And of course, also an honor to have all of you, ladies and gentlemen, joining us as a part of this conversation. I know Audrey already said it. I'm just going to remind you that we will be taking your questions in this session, so please send them in through Slido. Now, let's start with some context, right? As we sit here in the heart of our capital, economically, KL and Putrajaya contributed 15.4% to Malaysia's GDP in 2024. They are the nation's second largest economic hub. Kuala Lumpur alone attracted 63 billion ringgit in approved investments last year. That accounts for almost 15% of the national total. But these are numbers, right? And beyond that, these cities are home to many. KL is the most populous in the country, and as YB Hannah well knows, its residents demand and deserve greater quality of life. So today we're going to be talking about what goes into the balancing act of ensuring that the federal territories thrive economically, sustainably, and culturally. I think it's a tough ask. So YB, as we've established, a diverse portfolio, you've been busy. Tell us about your first 6 months. What have the priorities been?
Okay. So I took on this position midway in December. On the 17th of December, I became the FT Minister. And so looking at my timeline, I wouldn't even say that I have 1 year or 2 years. It really depends on when the Prime Minister will dissolve Parliament. And so when you assume a new role, you have to look at your timeline, how much time you have to execute your plans. And when you do not know exactly how long you have, then you have to try both things. You have to work on the long-term measures and also the short-term measures. And then you got to know who your team members are. And so the first thing I had to do is to establish trust with the people that I am leading the agencies. Obviously, will be the new mayor. The new mayor came in 1 month before me. And then we have a new president for Perbadanan Putrajaya, also 1 month before me. And then I have a new Director General for Jabatan Wilayah after me. So everybody is new, and we have to work very, very fast. And so I want to share with you just some very fast presentation, some slides on the things that we have been working on in the last 6 months. And we put all this together, and we had to run very fast because we just have no idea when our time will end. So just quickly allow me, in Kuala Lumpur, a lot of the complaints before this, the civil societies, the residents association, there is a lack of trust with the authorities. And so we had to do engagement with stakeholders and then re-establish a working relationship with all the residents association. So before us now, there's a lot of legal suit between residents association and the authorities versus developer. So they are not happy with development order given by City Hall. So there's a lot of legal suits. And we have to work around all that and re-establish trust. Okay, so I just want to talk about our main stakeholders. So in Kuala Lumpur now, we want a very open engagement with our stakeholders. So the first group would be the Member of Parliament. In Kuala Lumpur, there is no local government election, so you don't elect the mayor, you only elect your Member of Parliament. And currently, the Member of Parliament, they have no voting right in DBKL. So the budget of DBKL is 3 billion ringgit a year. That is the budget of the Selangor State Assembly, Selangor government. But the difference is in Selangor, for 3 billion ringgit budget, you have 56 assemblymen voting on the budget in the State Assembly every year. In Kuala Lumpur, the mayor proposes the 3 billion ringgit budget, comes before the FT minister, one person signs on it. FT minister signs on a 3 billion ringgit budget. And so when I came in, the budget has already been signed. I have to work on additional budget. And so the MPs, we have to call them in the room, establish committees, allow the MPs to then chair the committees to monitor the spending approved. Okay, so now the MPs have a voice in DBKL. They will monitor to make sure that if 2 billion has been approved for, let's say, road resurfacing, then they have to ensure that this is tendered, is spent properly and not last-minute Christmas shopping in October. Cartels, everybody warned me about cartels in DBKL, and you know, I have no experience how cartels work. And so we have to quickly call in the expert, MyCC. MyCC came in to check, and everything that MyCC, if MyCC raises the red flag, then we will have to retender that contract. MACC has done a lot of review of our SOP and processes. For example, Ramadan Bazaar, you have enforcement officers going to check on every stall. But before you revoke the license, MACC said, you know, it should not be in the hands of one enforcement officer. There should be a process as to how you revoke license. So all these processes are now being reviewed by MACC. Mayor is appointed by the king, and this mayor, the new mayor, came in and looked at 3 immediate measures to take. Number 1, the limits of authority. So before this mayor came in, mayor can approve any amount for CSR. So there's no limits. The mayor now put a cap of 3,000 ringgit. Anything above 3,000 ringgit CSR has to go before a committee to decide. And then also the audit committee in DBKL, it is chaired by the mayor, auditing the mayor's own spending. And so this now has changed. We have a Ministry of Finance advisory board member. This is now chaired by the Ministry of Finance officer, audit committee. Okay, in KL, we have a lot of pocket parks. But all these green spaces, when I came in, I found out that a lot of them were not gazetted. Now, what does it mean by parks not being gazetted? As long as it's not gazetted, the government can sell those parks, can be alienated. One of the things that we have discovered recently about retention pond, so you know retention pond water body has been reduced to 30% only in KL. And when we met with MACC to find out the outcome of their investigation, we realized that MACC concluded that there was no wrongdoing in the selling of those retention ponds, simply because 17 years ago, there was a decision for these places to be set aside as retention pond. But 17 years later, those ponds remain ungazetted. So as long as it's not gazetted as a retention pond, there's no wrongdoing when you sell those retention ponds. And so we have immediately set up 2 task forces now, one for flood mitigation, another task force just to gazette green spaces. So in the last 6 months, we have gazetted more than 400 green spaces, and every month now we are announcing new parks being gazetted. The entire task force role is just to gazette green spaces. And then I met all the residents association. They say, if you do not have a published list of gazetted green spaces, then we won't know how to track it. And so I asked the land office chief, I say, can you do this in 2 weeks? I want the list to be published online in 2 weeks. She said, I can do it. And immediately she got to work, and in 2 weeks after we came in, we published the list of green spaces. Now it's also linked to DBKL's website, so please go and have a look, check whether the park in your neighborhood has been gazetted or not. And we are doing this, and every time we do it, we will announce in the local neighborhood so that the residents actually know this is how we gazette the green spaces, okay? This is the task force. Okay. The other very common problem we have in KL is that, you know, people say, I don't know what's going on next door. I don't know what is being developed next door. And so I see hoarding coming up, but everything is done in secret. And so we publish an OSC portal. OSC means one-stop center. Every application to develop any land now will be published online. We have 2 different accounts, one for Member of Parliament. Member of Parliament will see all the detailed submission of plans and all that. But for the general public, they will have general information about what's going on in their neighborhood. This recently, you would have read about a proposed development in Pantai, in Bursa. And I started receiving a lot of WhatsApp messages from the Tan Sris in Bursa, from the activists in Bursa. And then we have to remind them that this is the new way of doing things. So KL now we have a local plan that says every piece of land, this is for commercial, this is for the zoning, the use, everything is public. But in the past, if it is residential, the owner then comes in and submit an application to develop a commercial project, okay? In the past, they will say, since it's a local plan, we have 2 committees. You have OSC and OSC HAS, okay? So OSC is chaired by the mayor. OSC HAS is chaired by the minister. Whatever the mayor rejects at OSC level, in the past, it can come up to the OSC HAS, chaired by the minister, and the minister can approve this kind of project. Yesterday, I just announced that as long as I'm minister, I'm no longer calling for OSC HAS because I want the professionals to do their job at the OSC level. No more OSC HAS in DBKL. Follow the local plan, and the mayor has announced that anything that is inconsistent with the local plan, they will employ Kaedah 3. Kaedah 3 means you have to serve notice on all the stakeholders affected. They have to compile, give their feedback. So the Bursa project is a Kaedah 3 announcement telling everybody in Bursa there's a proposed development coming up inconsistent with the local plan. If you have any complaints, please channel your complaints to your local rep and the mayor. And so everybody now is on alert in Bursa. Everybody is channeling their complaints. And when it comes before the mayor, the application, the mayor will say, now developer, go and address all these concerns. Until you have addressed everything, don't come back to us. We are not going to process it until you have addressed all the complaints. So this is Kaedah 3. It is very loud. It is very inconvenient because it means that you have to be on alert. You constantly have to do this in your neighborhood, give your complaint. But that's what it's about, engagement with stakeholders. You cannot leave it to just your residents association to do the job. So now this is online, so check. Okay. This is something that we announced recently. I give you an example, Mont Kiara. Mont Kiara, we have about 50 condos, okay? So all the developers, when they want to develop, they will give a contribution for infra fund. DBKL collects all this infra fund, and they're supposed to do special infra project to deal with special areas. But last time, everything comes before a fund, and they will then bill it for the entire KL. So now we are starting to go back into these areas. So I give you 2 very high populated area. One is Mont Kiara. Now we are building road just for Mont Kiara traffic. Another one is in Seputeh, Bukit Jalil, OUG, Old Klang Road. That one was also a special zone. Now we are doing special studies for these zones to make sure that any development in these zones must have special plans for traffic just to disperse traffic in these areas. Okay, the rest I think, okay, CIMB, since CIMB is an organizer, let's just go back to CIMB slide. I don't know how to go back to the CIMB slide, but I am just, can you just go back and reverse back to the CIMB slide? There's a lot of excitement in KL now. A lot of private sectors are all coming forward to give us money and they say, so CIMB gave us money to just fund programs in parks, concerts in parks for the people. Every weekend now we have orchestra, we have concerts, because we just want people to really enjoy the green spaces. And so any other banks here, you want to give us money, please? Apart from parks, we have a lot of other public spaces. Then I have professional bodies. The engineers are coming forward. Yesterday, we announced Art in the City with young architects. Young architects are now developing mobile toilets for us, designing, okay? Because we don't want it just to be the conventional toilets. Our new mobile toilets now will be the size of a car, one car park lot. So we can have this in multiple areas in KL, making this friendly for senior citizens. Because you know, senior citizens, they look for the washroom a lot. And so we want more of this in the city. And now, of course, town planners, they're all coming forward to help us. I think the rest I will deal with it as you ask me more questions. Yep.
Thank you very much for that, YB. So I think that covered a lot of ground. I know you had more slides, and it kind of ran the gamut of the reforms that you already spoke about, and also issues to do with livability. So I think for B, you spoke earlier about how coming in, you felt a degree of urgency, right? There is this feeling of, well, I don't know how long this is going to last. I'm not sure how much time I will have to enact what I want to enact. So right now, when you just look out at our city, what keeps you up at night? You know, what is the thing that makes you think, oh, I don't know if I can manage this?
Dark clouds keep me up at night. And during the day, when I see dark clouds, I get very worried because of the flood threat in KL. Over the last few years, 2020, we had 37 hotspot locations for flood in KL. As of this year, it has now dropped to 14 locations only. So you will read about flash flood simply because we have to spend a lot of money upgrading the drainage system, because the rain, half an hour, can cause chaos. So our plans now in KL, I can't undo the retention pond. But I need to now gazette the balance of retention ponds very quickly. Gym, okay. A lot of people pay gym, but very few actually use it. And then I found out from gym operators that the license fee, they pay higher amount of license based on the square feet compared to a fast food restaurant. And so they say this is really unfair because they want to make exercise affordable. I say, okay, so we slash gym fee by 80%, license fee. And we say, now you pump back in, I want you to give free lessons for senior citizens. So smaller gym in like Taman Tun and all, they're organizing free gym lessons for senior citizens. Because senior citizens do not have 100 over ringgit every month to pay for healthy living in gym. So we want to do all that, and we want them to also encourage, if you use it from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., then you give a discount so that I can disperse traffic according to different timing. Okay? So it's just a lot of tweaking and stuff like that to ensure everybody has a good life in KL. Okay.
I feel the need at this point to manage expectations because we have over 30 questions that have come in on Slido, and we have approximately, I'm exaggerating here, 20 minutes left. So just to let you know, thank you for the questions. We will run through as many of them as possible. I think I want to talk about the pedestrian or walkability of Kuala Lumpur, because that is, I want to say about 5 of the messages are circling that point. And I think it covers various concerns, including whether or not temporary road closures is enough to reduce car dependency, whether we can really maintain whatever we do in order to increase walkability. People are concerned about awnings falling down or, you know, not necessarily being maintained. And so all things that I think KLites would be familiar with. What would you like to say about how far along we are to reducing car dependency in a very deeply congested Kuala Lumpur? How far along are we to being able to walk the city centre regularly, normally, safely?
I think I cannot do it alone. I have to work with MOT. I have to work with other ministries. And like I say, if I only have 12 months, then I know there's very little I can do to reduce cars. If I want to build more MRT stations also, that's going to take another 10 years. I'm not going to see it now. And so, like I said, there's a lot of tweaking and working with a lot of different partners. I give you an example. When we partner with Zeus Coffee, Bangun KL, everybody came with their criticism and complaint, and they say, you think free coffee is going to change traffic pattern? I say, I have nothing to lose. It costs the government zero. Zeus Coffee came out and said, if you come in earlier, I give you 30% off coffee. Zero to DBKL, zero cost to us. Why wouldn't I partner with people who want to try anything just to help reduce congestion? Right? I'm not asking everybody to drink coffee. I'm not saying you must come in and buy a cup of coffee. No. If you are coming in, all these private sectors are offering different initiatives, the gym, the coffee shops. Everybody is doing their part just to reduce traffic jam. And I will work with everybody because it costs me nothing. My only challenge now is online portal. With social media online, it's very difficult to control headlines. So the headlines became more and more ridiculous. By the time I read the 10th portal, the headline has been changed drastically. It's no longer about free coffee. Hannah Yeoh is making everybody wake up early just to buy coffee. And so there's a lot of online anger, and you know, the energy just to fight sensational headlines is very, very draining. And if you are in comms department for your banks and all that, you will understand how difficult it is to fight the online trend. Yeah.
Okay, we also have people, I think a lot of this is a holdover from long-time concerns about how things are done in Malaysia. So we have a couple of questions worrying about the gazettement of green spaces and how easily they could be degazetted, or what's being done to ensure that they stay protected.
Okay, anything that is gazetted can be degazetted. Okay, the whole idea is to make it troublesome, more difficult for corrupt practices to take place, for corrupt politicians to reverse the situations. And so there's no guarantee, but the moment it's gazetted, to de-gazette, then you have to go back to the cabinet. But if I don't gazette it, then anyone can just sell it. And that's the challenge. And that's why now I have to teach all these civil servants. I say, you know, these green spaces, in the time of lockdown, you understand how precious the green spaces are, because you cannot be locked in your apartment. How you design low-cost housing and all that, it must come with meaningful space that people can come out to enjoy. And the moment you gazette, your next challenge is to create meaningful programs in these green spaces. So that's why the contribution by CIMB, for example, just to provide entertainment and concerts in parks the whole year is meaningful. And MK2, Minister Finance 2, that you will hear from later on today, he is constantly looking at not one-off events, but we want to create weekly programs in all these green spaces. Now, the other thing about green spaces, I just want to know how many ladies here you actually exercise before going to work? And how many of you actually shower in your company, in your office? So when I was Minister of Youth and Sports, I discovered that a lot of ladies cannot exercise in Asia country simply because there's not enough shower facilities for them. And the other second hindrance, of course, apart from the weather, is the fact that we don't know what to do with our hair. That is the key difference between ladies exercising and men. So for men, you just shower and you go off for your meetings. But for the ladies, you have to look for hair dryer, then you have to look for hair iron, so many things for them to plan out a workout session. So the next thing that we are designing now with the architects is to design public showers in Kuala Lumpur for the ladies. We are starting with Padang Mebok first, okay? So until and unless the infrastructure is in place, I cannot change behavioral pattern. I cannot encourage people to cycle to work if I don't have shower facilities for them waiting in the office. How are you going to cycle to Mandarin Oriental without sweating and turn up here looking decent and nice. It's impossible. So these are all the tweaking that has to happen to reduce cars, to encourage healthy lifestyle. The other thing also, we look at parks. A lot of senior citizens wake up at 4 something in the morning, and they sit around waiting for parks to open at 7 a.m. And so they say, can you open the parks earlier? So we have now announced 10 big parks in KL, open not 6 a.m. but 5:30 in the morning. And then for big parks like Taman Tasik Titi Wangsa and Botanical Garden, we now close at 12 midnight for Friday and Saturday night. But this is the new thing that I've discovered when I went site visit with the mayor to look at the parks. 5:30 in the morning, a lot of them, I was expecting senior citizens, but I found a lot of working people. Because they say half an hour makes a big difference for them to run longer and just to have more time to get ready for work. And then when I closed the parks at 12 midnight, I discovered there's a lot of rubbish because the people who come at 10 p.m. to 12 midnight are not people who are exercising. They come for leisure. Everybody is on their smartphone. So the next thing we're going to do is to partner and to provide free Wi-Fi in the big parks so that younger people will come and lepak at the parks instead of being hidden somewhere that I cannot see. At least in the parks, I can see them. They are all on their phones watching videos. But at least they're out there enjoying the green space, yeah.
Fresh air and TikTok.
Yes.
that seems to be the combo. We have a different question here about land use. So not green spaces, but land use. How does the ministry ensure land use and city planning support holistic child development and early childhood education in urban areas with scarce land?
Okay. TASCA, childcare, okay, since I'm talking to a lot of investors and banks here, can I say the kindest policy and the most protective policy you can implement in your company is to provide childcare and childcare allowance for your employees. This is the most important thing. If you don't provide childcare allowance or childcare facilities, you're going to get the ladies quitting their jobs because people just cannot afford childcare. Childcare in the city can go up to 1,000 ringgit per child. You want to encourage people to have 3 kids, that's 3,000 ringgit childcare alone. You better be paying them 6,000, 7,000 for a fresh grad if you're going to encourage, them to have a balanced work life. And so you need childcare. The other thing that we're now working on is dual licensing for TASCA. You see, every childcare, 2 to 4 years old is under the Women Ministry. 5 to 6 years old, Tadika, is under Education Ministry. Now we are streamlining everything, and Prime Minister wants to look into just one single ministry for early childhood. And that's why 6 years old now, the government has announced they can start with Standard 1 to close the gap. And so in all these local councils, they implement childcare and Tadika if you're going to have both. Because, if you're a working mom, you have a 2-year-old and you have a 5-year-old, you cannot send them to 2 different TASCA because that will take you another 1 hour on the road. 2 different locations. And by the time you get to office, you are drained already. And so if you want to allow TASCA operators to care for 2 different group of kids, then the licensing requirement says you need to have 2 different gates, 2 different doors. Dual licensing. It doesn't make sense. So now I want DBKL to look into streamlining to ensure that TASCA operators can survive. TASCA operators cannot charge a lot. They have very high turnover rate because nobody wants to look after kids all the time. So a lot of the young grads, they train them, they send them for training. After spending 800, 900 ringgit for a course, they leave for another job. So the TASCA operators keep training, and spending more money and not enough to retain. So these are some of the things I think we need to look at childcare. The next thing I'm also going to plan to do is to have town hall with children to make KL child-friendly. I want to hear from the children how they want to use Dataran Merdeka. Otherwise, it's the adults deciding and not the children.
You've mentioned a few times our audience and who's in it, so I wanted to ask this question. Where do you see the greatest opportunities for private companies to support Malaysia's sustainable city agenda while aligning with ESG business objectives?
I think my starting point for DBKL in KL is data collection and open data. If they know how to collect data meaningfully for every SOP and processes, analyzing business licenses and all that, if they know how to translate that into providing open data to the communities, putting up more information online, then businesses can plan more meaningfully. They know their target audience. And later on, I think with the usage of smart CCTV, we want to see what other data we can push out so that, you know, by looking at the data, you know what kind of business you want to do and what else you want to do. So I'm now looking into capacity training for our civil servants so that I don't want them to work in secrecy. Always everything is OSA, everything cannot share. Some of the data, I say, you know, you keep this data for what? How is this national secret? How is this dangerous for people to know? You should share those data. And so there's a lot of training and also the change of mindset that has to happen. Yeah.
Maybe an unsurprising amount of questions have also come in on cleanliness. People have been really specific. Thank you for that. Toilets, drains, lots of very specific trigger points coming up.
Yes.
And I think the questions are actually a bit of a combination. It's acknowledging that we, the people using these facilities, are problematic at times, but it's also asking what can DBKL do, what can the government do?
Okay. Cleanliness, people who litter. So Housing Ministry has amended the laws. Now they impose community service if you're caught littering, even your cigarette butt. And they are out there at Dataran Merdeka, they are checking. So 2,000 people have been arrested so far and fined. And they are going to be going on leave to do community service. So that's something YB Ngakoming is very passionate about. And he is doing that, okay? Cleanliness, our public toilets, we are working with the young architects. The mayor wants to include sensor and also like auto flush and all that for our toilets moving forward. But for me, the greatest challenge in Malaysia is to keep our toilets dry, our public toilets. Our public toilets are always wet. And so we have to change that, the design. And also the other thing is there's a lot, if you read online now, especially today and yesterday, there's a lot of anti-refugee sentiment being played up. And this is always asked in Parliament, what are you doing about the refugees in KL? What are you doing about the foreign workers in KL? So there is a fine balance in, I think, KL being an international city, international destination. We also rely heavily on foreign workers. So, you know, we have the free, Go KL free buses. A lot of people say, oh, it should not be free for foreign workers. These are all the staff, people who are serving you in restaurants and in your factories, in your market. So we are looking into all these policies, making sure that Malaysians are happy paying taxes, but at the same time, we also want to make sure we are humane and kind. So this, I cannot do it alone at the DBKL level. We have to work with Home Ministry, especially with refugees. Where else can you send them? I don't know. I don't have the answer. And so that's why we have to work closely with the refugees and with the Home Ministry. And now Prime Minister is also looking into people subcontracting out their licenses. So applicant is a Malaysian, but when you turn up at the shops, these are all foreigners running those shops. And the rental in KL, Petaling Street alone, the rental can go up to 30,000, 40,000 ringgit. So we are looking into all that.
Okay. As we wind down today's conversation, I would say that the word that has come up the most as I look through the Slido is long-term continuity. I think you started off by talking about the length of time you've had, but also the length of time you're unsure you will have. And I think there is a general sense of people wondering, okay, so how then will we ensure that these initiatives continue? What's being done to ensure that there is going to be continuity regardless of whether or not you are minister?
I'm going to sound very political here. Please excuse me, but I have no choice because you asked a political question. I have to answer you politically. Politics is about leadership, and it is about what you want to see shape up for the nation that you believe in. Kuala Lumpur belongs to everybody, multiracial, and so very soon you will have to decide on the next stage or the next phase of this country's direction. the power really lies in your own hands. Like I say, anything we gazette can be de-gazetted. It's your choice to put in the kind of leaders that you want to lead Malaysia forward. You can have policies, you can have guidelines, you can have all this in paper, but until and unless you have the administrators who believe in the future of Malaysia the way you want to see it happen, it's not going to happen. Okay, so you got to be smart about this. It's in your hands who you put in place to run your cities next.
Okay, YB, you've given us a lot to think about. In closing, I think that was a good closing message, but I wanted to close actually with a message about Kuala Lumpur, right? Because that's the focus. What do you want to leave us with today? What do you want us to think about as we leave the hall?
Okay, so Kuala Lumpur has a rich history. And all of you remember minibus, you remember parts of KL growing up. And so our focus now is, while we focus on contemporary, what is futuristic, we also want to preserve our heritage. So the mayor has an active list of buildings that he wants to gazette as heritage sites. The government has also spent money. Khazanah has done a great job restoring Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad, Sri Negara. These are all places that if you go every weekend now, it's full. People are just enjoying the time out there looking at heritage buildings. So we have to do both. And private sectors, I think if you are looking into, contributing meaningfully, contact my office so that we can plan out how you can play a role. And there are many private sectors coming forward now to offer their expertise. And we really want to work with you all, because I believe government alone, we cannot do everything on our own. I want you to be happy paying taxes. I want to cut out SOP and bureaucracies. If it takes 14 days to get something done, I want to constantly look at cutting it short, 10 days. 1 day is money. Data is money. Time is money for us. Speed is money. And so I want the civil service, especially in KL, to understand this and to run together with you, so that together, we can be faster than Singapore.
Okay, that's a rousing end. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, YB, and thank you, Lynn, for that engaging session.